Hi folks, I'm Lance Tompkins and today I'm going to be talking about knife use and safety. For many of us growing up, the pocket knife was the first real tool that we ever owned. And even into adulthood, many of us still carry them, and it's still the first tool we reach for when we're trying to get things done. Today, the pocket knives I'll be using are the Boy Scout Deluxe pocket knife and the ubiquitous Swiss Army knife. The reason I'm using these is in the scouting program, this is the type of knife that they recommend because it has more than just a cutting blade. There are a lot of knives out there, lockback knives, liner lock knives, multi-bladed knives, multi-cutting blades in the knife. This one they recommend because it has other tools like a can opener and a couple of screwdrivers and an awl for drilling holes in leather. So it's very, very, very versatile. It becomes like a little toolkit in your pocket. Now when we're dealing with knives, it's a tool, it's not a toy. So you have to respect it as a tool. Anything that can hurt you, and a sharp blade can hurt you, anything that can hurt you needs to be respected. So when we're handling a knife, when you're not using it, the blade needs to be put away. Okay? Don't leave it out on a table open. Don't walk around with it open. If you're not using it, close the blade, put it away. The second thing is only open one blade at a time. Now, this is kind of a no-brainer. You shouldn't be walking around with multiple blades open on a knife. I don't know why someone would do that, but I suppose it's a problem. That's why we're covering it. Only one blade at a time. And when we talk about a blade, we're talking about the cutting blade and, you know, in this case, the cap lifter and screwdriver, that's also a blade. Only one of them at a time needs to be opened. The biggest thing on safety is when you're cutting, when you're actually using the knife, you should be cutting away, okay? Never towards you. Why never towards you? Because you could cut yourself. Anything that's in the blood circle, we're going to talk about the blood circle, that is the circle around you that the blade could possibly touch. The blade could possibly touch anything out in this circle and cut it. So make sure before you start using your knife that there's no one standing in the blood circle. The other thing I want to talk about is the triangle of death, or the triangle of danger is what they call. I've seen a lot of folks, adults and children, violating this, especially on campouts when they go to carve a stick. I'm going to show you what it looks like and why you need to avoid the triangle of danger. The triangle of danger is this area right in here. This is where femoral arteries carry a lot of blood. They're big arteries. If you cut one, you will bleed a lot very quickly. And I have seen folks, they have their pocket knife, pretend the blade's out, and they're carving inside the triangle of danger. If they slip and they cut one of those arteries, they're going to be in trouble really quick. The best thing to do if you're going to carve is to be carving on a workbench or on a table, something that protects your bottom extremities from the knife blade, okay? Okay. When we're talking about handling a knife safely, you need to make sure when you pass it that the knife blade is closed. Again, it's always safer when it's closed. This is a habit you need to get into, and for you adult leaders and older scouts, this is a habit that you're going to have to enforce on the younger troops so that it becomes a habit for them. So when you pass the knife to someone, even if it's closed, you put it in their hand, you wait for them to say thank you, which is an acknowledgement that they have a good grip on it, and then you release. And the same thing, if they pass it back to you, they put it in your hand, you get a good grip, you say thank you, and then they'll release it. You need to get into this, the habit of teaching the younger troops to do this. Now, when we're talking about knife safety, there are a lot of different places you can't take a knife. You can't take a knife on an airline. You can't take a knife in school. Even in some scout camps, they will prohibit you from taking a sheath knife or a fixed blade knife. And that is what this is. This is a fixed blade knife, meaning you cannot take the knife blade and put it into the handle. But you may be cooking at camp, and you may have a fixed blade knife inside the kitchenware. To pass a fixed blade knife safely, you're not just going to hand it to them like this and have them grab the blade, right? Because they can cut themselves. What you want to do is grab the knife by the back of the blade and hand it that way. Once they get a handle on it, they say thank you, and you release. Same way, going back the other way. They're going to take the knife, hand it to you, you get a good grip on it, say thank you, and then they release. Ideally, when you're passing a fixed blade knife, it has a sheath. So you can just hand them the entire knife and sheath. They say thank you again, even though it's in a sheath, it's okay. You get into that habit of always passing a knife and saying, waiting for them to say thank you first. Okay? We talked about obeying all regulations. So some places you can't have a knife. Keep that in mind before you get ready to travel on an airline, before you walk into school. You know, I don't know, maybe you're going to wear your pants that you wore at the camp out the weekend and the pocket knife's still in there. You probably need to check and make sure that that's out before you walk into the school. Never carry a knife with a blade open. This is another, it should be a kind of a no-brainer. If you're walking with a knife, that's dangerous. You could fall on it. You could run into somebody else with a blade. So, you shouldn't be walking and carving. You shouldn't be walking and cutting up vegetables or anything like that. Just close the blade, put it in your pocket, walk to where you need to go to, and then pull the blade out and use it. Never throw a knife. Okay, remember at the beginning I was telling you that the knife needs to be respected because it can cut you. It's not a toy, so you're not going to throw it like darts. I've seen folks do this. It doesn't usually end well. Don't do it. Don't do it. Now, that being said, I've never seen a Boy Scout do it or a Scout do it. It's always been a non-Scout. Never strike a knife with another tool. Let's say you're trying to cut through something tough and you decide that you need more leverage on the back of that blade. Don't hit it with a knife. Get a different knife, get a saw. Do not hit the knife with a hammer or anything else because you can break the blade. If the blade pops off, you can hurt yourself or somebody else. And this is another thing. When we talked about having a multi-tool knife, there's a reason for that. You should never use your main blade, which should be the fattest cutting blade on your knife. You shouldn't use that as a pry bar. It's not a pry bar. It's a knife. It's for cutting. You can break off the tip. You can bend your knife. You can break off the tip and it ends up in somebody's eye. That's one of the reasons why a multi-tool knife is nice, because you've got a screwdriver edge here. You can use that as a pry bar as long as it's not too tough to pry loose. If it's really tough, then don't even use this. The blades aren't that thick. The other thing is don't use the tip of the blade as a screwdriver. That's a good way to ruin your knife. That tip is very, very thin. If you try to get in there and use it as a screwdriver, or even, worse yet, even using the back of the blade of the screwdriver where it can close on your hand, don't do that. Just use a regular screwdriver blade. Okay? Now, we've covered the safe use of a knife. One of the things that keeps a knife safe is when it's clean. and sharp and well cared for, because it's less likely to slip. It's less likely, when you're cutting, it's less likely to cause any infections if you do happen to cut, because you're using a clean blade. When you clean a pocket knife, you clean it the way you would normal dish utensils, okay, like you're on a camp out. Don't put it in the dishwasher. The extreme heat and the harsh detergents in a dishwasher can ruin the handle and sometimes even the blade and the tempered steel springs in the back. When I'm cleaning a pocket knife, I always start with the back, with the top of the springs. In here in these springs, between the springs and the blade, that can get gunked up with lint and dust. So just take a little toothpick and clean that all out. Both sides, both ends, before you start washing it. Wash one blade at a time. Okay, and you need to wash all the blades, because if you're using your pocket knife for food preparation, I've done that, I don't want cross-contamination. I don't want cross-contamination from the can opener blade on any of the blades either. So wash all your blades. The other thing too is sometimes acidic food can get on the other blades as well. And you want to get that off, because even stainless steel can corrode under certain acidic foods. So you need to clean the knife. And if you're in the scouting program, you're going to use your knife heaviest when you're at camp. Doesn't matter if it's a weekend camp or if it's a week-long camp. You want to clean your pocket knife when you get home. Same time you clean all your dishes, same time you air out your sleeping bag, right? So that way it's ready to go for the next adventure, and it's not sitting there with food and gunk and everything else on it, getting dirtier, harder to get clean. So, when we're cleaning the inside of the knife, this area here also needs to be cleaned, in between the blades, okay? And the best way to clean that is when you got it all soapy, take a cotton swab and get down in there and clean that out real good. And then, just like cleaning regular dish utensils, you need to go ahead and dry off each one of the blades. You need to dry it as best you can. Make sure it's very, very dry. When you're finished drying it, and you get it all ready to go, it's all nice and cleaned, you need to oil it. And oiling it keeps the pins and the spring mechanism in the back working properly. You can buy special oil for a pocket knife. It's really very, very thick, and that's what you kind of want. You want something that's going to stay on there. I don't recommend like WD-40. One, it gets everywhere. It's so thin it ends up on all the blades. Even if you were going to prepare food with your pocket knife, you're going to have to wash it first just so you don't get WD-40 in your food. The oil that I would recommend is plain old 3-in-1 oil. You can get it at Walmart, any hardware store. You can use it for a lot of different things. It's just about the right consistency to oil a pocket knife. That's all I have to say. Keep your pocket knife sharp, keep it clean, act safely with it, and have it ready for your next adventure. Thanks.